I never imagined I'd be the kind of woman who ended up telling a story like this. It grew up believing in loyalty, in keeping your promises, in building a home out of love and patience. I thought those things mattered more than anything, and I carried that belief into my marriage, into every sacrifice I made, every decision I stood by. But love, as I learned, isn't always what it seems when you're the only one fighting to keep it alive. My name is Sarah, and for 10 years I was the proud, faithful wife of a Manam Demir. We had what I thought was a solid marriage built slowly and carefully, like a house made of stone. It wasn't perfect, we had our struggles, but we always made it work, at least that's. What I believed I was wrong, I was terribly wrong the first time. I sensed something was off. Was a regular Tuesday morning, Amir had become quieter over the past few months, but I chalked it up. Tostress at work. He worked in logistics, soften out meeting suppliers, managing accounts, and spending late evenings at the office. I never questioned him. He was my husband. I trusted him that morning. Though, his phone buzzed while he was in the shower. It was face up on the nightstand, and I saw a name flash across the screen. I didn't recognize Samira. I didn't think much of it. Maybe a coworker, maybe a client. But then another message came in. Last night was amazing. I miss you already. I froze. My heart started pounding. My hands trembled. I didn't open. The message, some strange sense of self. Respect held me back, but I knew I just knew. When he came out of the bathroom, I handed him his phone, smiled, like nothing happened, and kissed him. Goodbye as he left for work. I went about my day as if everything was normal. I cooked lunch, cleaned the house, even called my sister just to hear a familiar voice. But something inside me had cracked. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was the collapse of a world I had built for a decade with this man. The walls were falling in that night. I stayed up late, after he went to bed, just staring at him. While he slept. How could someone lie so easily? How could he look me in the eye? Every day and pretend I didn't cry. Not. Then the pain was too deep to show itself on the surface the next few days. I played my part perfectly. I was the same. Cheerful, supportive wife. I didn't confront him, not because I was afraid, but because I needed time to be sure. Time to plan. I started observing, more carefully. His lies were sloppy, built on routine excuses. Late meetings, tuck-in traffic. No client dinner one night. I followed him after he left, for work. I borrowed my cousin's car and drove a few blocks behind him. I didn't expect to see anything. Honestly, part of me still hoped I was wrong. But when he pulled up to a restaurant on the other side of town and walked in with a woman in a red dress, all my doubts evaporated. I stayed in the car. I watched them laugh, hold hands across the table. She even kissed him on the cheek. It was all so icy for him, like I never existed. I didn't scream. I didn't rush inside and cause a scene I went home sad in. The dark thought about every time I supported him when he was jobless. Every time I comforted him when he was down. Every time I put his needs before mine. All those years, he was supposed to be my partner. But I had been alone in that marriage far longer. Then, I realized the next morning. I started preparing not for a confrontation, but for something better. I wasn't going to cry and beg. I wasn't going to break dishes or scream. I was going to do something unforgettable, something he'd never see. Coming first, I gathered evidence quietly. Calmly, I went through phone records. Receipts tracked his locations. I took pictures when they met again, which they did twice more that week. I even managed to get audio from one of their conversations when he stepped away and left his phone on the table. He was planning a weekend away with her, said he'd tell me he was going to a business retreat. Then I made sure our joint accounts were in order. I moved my own savings into a separate account under my name, something he never cared to monitor. I made copies of important documents, Evan his text messages, which I was able to retrieve thanks to the cloud backup I had access to. He was careless. He never thought I'd notice, but I didn't stop. There, I reached out to people quietly and carefully, his boss who always respected me, my lawyer, cousin who owed me a favor, even his sister, who knew more than she ever let on. I didn't tell, and what I was planning just laid the groundwork for what was to come. People underestimate the power of calm observation while he was living his double life. I was laying the foundations of a storm, and he had no idea. Every day he came home, I smiled. I packed his lunchie, asked about his day. He thought I was the same old Sarah, blind, gentle, loyal, toe-fault. But I wasn't the same. I had changed. I had woken up the breaking point. Came 2 weeks later, he left town for his so-called business trip. I watched him pack, kissed him goodbye. At the door, watched him drive away with a suitcase full of lies. He didn't. I know that the same night I was going to walk into the restaurant where his other woman worked. I had learned she was a hostess at an upscale place downtown. I walked in, asked to speak to her. She looked surprised when I said my name. She knew who I was. She tried to walk away. I calmly asked her to sit. I told her who I was. I told her everything. I knew. And then I showed her the photos. Her face went pale. She didn't know he was married. He told her he was divorced. I didn't yell. I wasn't there to humiliate. I told her I wasn't angry at her. I was angry at him, and she deserved to know the truth as much as I did that night. She blocked his number, told him she never wanted to see him again. I know this, because she messaged me later to say, "Thank you." She'd been lied to. Just like I had. She was just another pawn. In his selfish game when he came back from his trip, I had already moved out. I didn't leave a note. I didn't leave. Clue, just silence. I moved into a small apartment. I had secured the week before. And then, when he was trying to figure out where I was, I sent him a message with a single line, "I know everything Hetreed to call." I didn't answer. He showed up at my workplace. I ignored him. He left notes on my car. I didn't even read Themey. Silence was louder than any scream, and it drove him mad. But I wasn't done. Revenge isn't about destroying someone in a moment of rage. It's about showing them exactly what they lost and how they'll never get it back. The silence I gave him was the most powerful thing I'd ever done. No screaming, no accusations, no drama, just absence. Just a void where my loyalty used to live. He was left to stare into that void, trying to figure out when everything had fallen apart, never realizing. It was the moment he chose to lie the week after. I left Amir's calls turned from demanding to desperate voicemails filled with apologies, confusion, even tears. He couldn't find me. And that drove him wild. He tried to reach out through mutual friends, even distant relatives. I said nothing I had already, made it clear I knew everything. And that was all I needed to say. Everything after that was noise. Meanwhile, I was building something new for myself. The apartment I'd moved into was small but peaceful. Every corner was mine. No more shared closet filled with the stench of deceit. No more dinners eaten in silence while he texted someone else under the table. I started waking up early again, taking walks in the park, reading books I had long neglected. I even started painting again, something I hadn't touched in years. For the first time in a decade, I felt like I was breathing, but I didn't forget what he did. I wasn't going to let him walk away from this untouched. I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to punish him with chaos. I was going to punish him with clarity. I was going to dismantle the image he had worked so hard to maintain, the successful, charming, faithful husband. I was going to let the truth speak louder than anything he could say. In defense, it began with his workplace. Amir had always been proud of his job, his identity wasted to his career, like it was an extension of his ego. He often bragged about how indispensable he was to the company. I knew his manager Naeem well enough from the few company events I had attended. I reached out and requested a meeting, not emotional, not accusatory, just a calm conversation face to face. When I met Naeem, I brought the receipts, literal ones. Hotel bookings under false business trips, credit card charges for gifts. He never gave me photos of him and Samira at restaurants. During office hours, I told him I wasn't seeking sympathy, I wasn't angry. I just thought someone should know that. One of their senior staff had been abusing company time and resources to cheat on his wife. To say Naeem was shocked would be an understatement. He kept shaking his head, muttering, "I can't believe this." Under his breath, I didn't demand anything. I left it with him. Let him decide what to do. That's the thing about the truth. Doesn't need force, it just needs to be exposed. After that, I focused on our social circle Amir had always prided himself on being. The charming host, the guy everyone liked. He wore his friendships like badges of honor. I never spoke ill of him to anyone during our marriage. But now I changed that slowly, one conversation at a time. I told the truth. Not with drama, just facts. He had an affair. He lied for months. He used me. I didn't embellish. I didn't need to. Some friends were shocked. Others weren't surprised at all. A few admitted they'd seen signs but didn't know how to bring it up. One friend even confessed that Amir had made an inappropriate comment to her once at a party when he thought I wasn't around. It was like peeling back layers of a rotten onion. The deeper you went, the worse it got. Samira, he so called. Other women had moved cities after everything fell apart. She resigned from her job and went back to live with her parents. She had messaged me once after our meeting, thanking me again and apologizing. I told her she didn't owe me anything. She had been deceived just like I had. We never spoke again. But Amir, he was unraveling one afternoon. I got a call from his mother. She had always loved me. She was crying. She said Amir had told the family that I had left him, for no reason, that I had some kind of breakdown. I could hear the panic in her voice as she asked, "Sarah, what happened? What did he do?" I told her everything, every ugly detail. I didn't want to humiliate her son. He'd already done that himself. I just wanted her to know the truth. She wept, and then she said something. "I'll never forget, you were the best thing that ever happened to him, and he threw you away." That call spread through the family. Like wildfire, relatives began calling, some to apologize, some to offer support, some just to gossip, I'm sure. But I didn't care. I had stayed silent for so long. Now the truth was finally speaking for me. Amir, faced with the consequences of his betrayal, began trying to salvage his image. He told people I was overreacting, that I'd misunderstood that. It wasn't really an affair, just a moment of weakness, that he loved me and always had. But it was too late. He even tried to reach out to my parents, hoping they'd convince me to at least talk to him. My mother told him, "You had your chances. She's not coming back." My father didn't say a word, just hung up the phone. He even sent flowers to my workplace. I didn't touch them. My manager had them removed and warned him not to harass me. Aegon, one of my co-workers who had been through a similar betrayal, patted me on the back and said, "You're doing better than most. I admire your strength." But the final blow was still coming. The house we had shared was in both our names, but most of the financial burden had fallen on me. I had been the one paying the mortgage for years while he focused on career growth. I filed for legal separation and requested my share of the property value when he contested it. My lawyer brought out every single financial record showing how little he'd contributed. The court ordered him to buy out my share or sell the house. He didn't have the money. The house was sold, and with that, The last piece of the life we'd built together crumbled. I remember visiting the house one last time before. The handover, I stood in the living room where we used to eat dinner, walked through the hallway where our wedding photos once hung touched the bedroom door, where I used to wait for him to come, home believing he was out working hard for our future. And I let it go. Not out of weakness, but because I had outgrown the pain. My revenge wasn't in destroying him. It was in rebuilding myself. So thoroughly that he no longer had a place in my story. I left that house without looking back. Freedom is a strange thing. You dream of it when you're trapped, but when you finally taste it, it doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It's quiet still. A slow breath. In a room that no longer holds memories of someone who broke you. That's what life felt like after the house was sold. After the phone call stopped. After Amir's name became just another part of my past. I had crossed a storm. And now I was standing in the calm. I wasn't broken. I wasn't bitter. I was alive in a way I hadn't been in years. The first few months were about survival. I worked hard, saved money, and invested time in myself. I took weekend courses in digital design, something I had always been interested in but never pursued. I started freelancing part-time while keeping my main job. Slowly, a second income started building. For the first time, I had my own dream. Something that wasn't tied to aim in a home or a promise. But my story with Amir wasn't completely over yet. Not because I still had feelings for him, but because real revenge doesn't end with distance. It ends with transformation. One afternoon, I was invited to speak at a women's entrepreneurship seminar. A friend of mine had seen how I rebuilt my life after the separation and thought I could inspire others. I wasn't sure. I wasn't used to being the one people listened to, but I said yes. When I stood on that small stage in front of 50 women, something shifted in me. I spoke openly, not just about betrayal, but about finding your voice again, about starting over without shame, about using pain as fuel. And when I finished, the applause was quiet but honest. That's when I realized something. My story wasn't just mine anymore. It was a path. Others could walk too. I started a blog not about infidelity, but about rebuilding. About starting again at 30 with no plan and no support. And still rising. It wasn't viral. It wasn't flashy. But slowly, people began to read it. I got emails from women who'd gone through worse, thanking me for saying what they couldn't say out loud. That meant more than revenge ever could. Then something unexpected happened one evening while checking my messages. I received a short email, Sarah. I know I don't deserve it, but I need to say it. I'm sorry for everything I ruined. The best thing I ever had. You didn't deserve any of it. I hope you're doing well. A mirror. It didn't come with flowers or explanations. Just regret, empty, hollow regret. I stared at it for a few minutes, not with anger, not with sadness. Just distance. This was the man who once owned my heart, who once promised forever and gave me betrayal instead. And now he was nothing more than a reminder of how far I had come. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I didn't need anything from him anymore. My closure wasn't in his apology. It was in my own strength. Months turned into a year. By then I had launched my own small agency, doing digital branding for women businesses. It wasn't massive, but it was mine, every client, every milestone. It all felt earned, pure. A world built on truth, not lies. One day, I was attending a corporate event where entrepreneurs shared their success stories. I was a guest speaker after my talk. As I stepped off the stage, I saw him, a mirror standing near the back, hands in his pockets, looking older, tired, smaller. Somehow he came up to me slowly. I didn't flinch. "Hi," he said, trying to smile. "Hello?" I replied, calm as ever. "You're doing well," he said, looking around the room. I heard about your company? "Yes," I said. Simply, I'm doing well. He paused. I just wanted to say again, I'm sorry. I nodded. I know he looked like he wanted to say more, maybe something to explain, to defend, but I didn't give him that space. There's nothing left to fix a mirror. I said, I've healed, and I hope someday you do too. He stood there quiet, and then with a slow nod, he turned and left. I felt nothing, no surge of power, no vindictive joy, just peace. Because true revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's making sure they know they never had the power to destroy you. It's showing them that the best parts of you, the love, the loyalty, the fire still exists, just not for them years. From now, he'll remember me. Maybe with guilt, maybe with longing. But he'll remember that the woman he betrayed didn't fall apart. She rose, and I'll remember him as the reason I finally learned how to stand tall alone, powerful and free. That was the end of my old life and the beginning of something far greater, not revenge or redemption mine,